One of the biggest announcements that shook the heavy metal world was the announcement that Megadeth was calling it quits after over 40 years of being in the business. Well, their final album has just been released, The Last Ride of Dave Mustaine. Is it good? Is it bad? Find out next. Welcome, metal enthusiasts, to another episode of The Metal Dude Abides. Tonight, we are going to take a look at the latest, the 17th and presumably final studio album from legendary band Megadeth. Now, a brief history. There are considered a big four of thrash metal: Metallica, Megadeth, Anthrax, and Slayer. But for me personally, it's always been really a top two between Metallica and Megadeth. And I've spent the last 4 decades trying to figure out which one I like the best. I would also say that these two legendary bands are within the top 10 heavy metal bands of all time. And obviously, 2 of my top 10 favorite heavy metal bands. And let's face it, only one person founded both bands. That man's name is Dave Mustaine. In fact, I can't think of another figure in music that has formed 2 legendary bands as important to the genre as Metallica and Megadeth, which makes Dave Mustaine maybe one of the most important and influential musicians in the history of heavy metal. And so when Dave Mustaine says, "That's it, I'm calling it quits," that's newsworthy. And quite frankly, I think it's time for Megadeth to hang it up. Dave Mustaine has been riddled with health problems over the last few years. And so when I heard that they were retiring, it was bittersweet, but I was happy for Dave. And I really want him to go out on a banger. So the question is this final album really good? Fitting a legendary performer? Or is it a bit of a dud, exposing someone who's been in the business maybe a little bit too long? Let's go track by track and figure it out. The opening track on this album is a song called Tipping Point. Now, way back in October of 25, when Megadeth announced that this would be their final album, their first single that they released was this song right here. And man, right off the bat, I was like, this song is absolutely great, and really whet my appetite for what this album was to come. And so, sure enough, it's the opening track on the album. Now, what makes this song so great is, first of all, it starts off with a very tasty riff. Following that, the lead guitarist just starts shredding. Old school shredding. Love, love, love it. Right over the top of this riff. And then it just breaks into that typical speed metal, thrash metal, breakneck speed riff that just is the essence of the entire song. I love a song that goes fast, a song that's aggressive, a song that features all sorts of great guitar work. This song has it all. A great thrash metal classic. Now, one of the things you may ask is how in the world has Megadeth kept their edge in this business for over 40 years? And that's a great question, because we see a lot of times heavy metal bands become popular, they make a little bit of money, and they lose their edge. They get soft, they're living in a mansion, whatever. Dave Mustaine, the secret is, he has stayed pissed off this entire 40 years. He has kept a level of festivity that is impressive. And I think it's allowed him to keep his edge. Now here, this song just drips with anger, pissed offness, and disdain. That attitude just flows through the music and makes this first song an instant classic. Speaking of Dave's attitude, the second song on this album was the second single they released back in November. I Don't Care. This could be a monument to Dave's snarl and attitude. It kind of reminds me a little bit going back to Peace Sells But Who's Buying. Not that it's as good a song as Peace Sells, not that it is as heavy as Peace Sells, but it's got the same cadence as Peace Sells. In other words, this is one of those songs where Dave kind of talks through in like small, like bites of attitude, as opposed to really singing. So, for instance, if you go back to the Peace Sells, what do you mean I can't be the president? It's kind of like that in this song as well. A little bit of a punk vibe here. Really, again, if you have been listening to Megadeth for these 40 years, you know this is a trademark of the band. Better get used to it. You're going to get a lot of Dave Mustaine's sneer and snarl, and it's best displayed right here. I absolutely adore track 3. Hey God is the first new song on the album. By new, I mean this was not released as a single. This is the first time I've heard it today. For those of you who may or may not know, Dave converted to Christianity some years back, and this song is kind of an ode to that and an acknowledgement of that. And he's dealing with a question that as Christians we all sometimes have to ask ourselves. Here we have a all-powerful God who is faithful and loving to us, even at our most wretched. Even in our most sin-soaked existence, God loves us and God takes care of us. This is a really nice change of pace where Dave shows off his vulnerabilities. The first 2 songs were all about attitude, bravado, Dave puffing up his chest, but here he is acknowledging the majesty of God and his own failings, and comes about this from a very humble point of view. Love this, love the change of pace, love the change of attitude. One of my favorite songs in the entire album. Another favorite song of mine is the 4th track, Let There Be Shred. This was the 3rd single that was released prior to the album coming out, so I'd heard this one before. We've talked and talked and talked about Dave's attitude. You really can't talk about Megadeth without talking about that. But one of the other things, and I think it's one of the things that people don't appreciate fully about Dave, Dave loves heavy metal. Dave loves thrash metal. And Dave loves great guitar work. He has spent the last 4 decades introducing us to some of the best guitar music you'll ever hear. Maybe this is even kind of an ode to all the great guitarists he's worked with over the years. A few of my favorite, Chris Poland from back in the early days, probably the classic lineup guitarist, Marty Friedman, and recently Kiko, who just recently left the band. 3 of the all-time great guitarists. I was thinking about this the other day. Dave Mustaine has introduced the world to so many great guitarists, kind of like Ozzy did in his time, bringing in, Zakk Wylde and Randy Rhoads and Jake E. Lee, etc. And one of the things that really makes it special is, Dave also plays guitar. And so I've always found it really fascinating that, his ego didn't prevent him from bringing in such great young talent and giving them the spotlight right alongside him. Really good stuff. Now, the guitarist he's playing with now is a guy that's on his very first Megadeth album. What a way to come in. Kind of reminds me of John Sykes being on the very last Thin Lizzy album. Timu Mantisari may be a one and done, only playing on the very final Megadeth album. But yeah, this song really, Dave is a very serious individual. On this song, it just seems like he's just having fun and letting his playful side out. And the guitar work, as on all 4 of these first songs, absolutely amazing. This is by far my favorite song on the album so far. The 5th song on the album is a song called Puppet Parade. It was the very last single that was released prior to the release of this album. And if my memory serves me, just released a couple of weeks ago. So while I've been listening to these singles for a while, this is the newest one I haven't had nearly enough time with. So it's a pretty new song as well. Now, this song kind of reminds me of the classical Symphony of Destruction era style of Megadeth. And maybe it's because of the whole puppet thing. If you remember on the song Symphony of Destruction, he was talking about the marionettes, the politicians. But in this time, the puppet parade, well, he's talking about us. One of the things that we have to be very leery about is as we have to be careful to not be following leaders blindly and just being puppets to wicked and evil rulers. Dave, one of the things we talked about earlier is he's been able to hold on to his edge for a long time because he's pissed off. I'll tell you why he's pissed off, because Dave follows politics. Let me tell you, if you follow politics, you're going to spend your entire life pissed off. There's never anything good news coming out of politics. So my advice to everybody, I've been saying this for years, as someone who's trying to reform from the political scene, run. Don't walk. Run as far away from politics as you can. It will absolutely, your life will become a lot more happy, and you will not be part of this amazing puppet parade that Dave Mustaine is singing about here. I forgot to mention that this album has 10 tracks. We have finished the first 5, and let me just say, all 5 of the songs I've listened to thus far have all been absolute bangers. Really great songs. Lots of very interesting guitar work. I would expect nothing less from Dave. But, when you come in and you're hoping this is going to be good, and 5 songs in, you're like, yep, every song's been good. Makes my metal heart soar with delight. But I will also say that if you follow the format of my channel, I always tell you my favorite songs on an album, but I'll also point out my least favorite songs, or if there's a song I don't really care for. And unfortunately here, the momentum stalls for a second, because in track 6, we have the song Another Bad Day. Now, I will say that this song did make me laugh a couple times because this dude is really having a bad day. One of the lines that made me laugh, it says, "I lost my job and I lost my tooth." Yep, that's a pretty bad day. Almost kind of reminds me of some of the clever lyrics that Lemmy used to put out and would always make me laugh. So the lyrics are pretty entertaining, and there is a very interesting riff that comes through this song. So why is it my least favorite song? It does become a little repetitious. The chorus kind of plays on and on a little bit. I know it's hard to put together really clever lyrics like this, but I think he could have used another set of verses and kind of not gone to the chorus as much as he does here. So it's an okay song, but I found at the end of it, I was starting to get a little annoyed might be a strong word, but I was getting tired of Another Bad Day being sang over and over again. So I would say this is by far the worst song on the album. Now the thought starts to penetrate your mind. We just got through with Another Bad Day, clearly a weaker song than the rest of the album. And so there's a little bit of dread that starts to creep in that says, is the rest of the album just kind of going to fade off and be a lot of filler? A lot of albums start off great, and then the second half of the album just falls apart and leaves nothing but disappointment. Luckily for us, the answer is not a chance, because the next song, Made to Kill, is amazing. One of the heaviest tracks on the entire album, and I think it's probably by far the best drumming performance on the entire album. Hats off to Dirk Verbeuren, who is on his second Megadeth album, which makes him the longest standing member of the band outside of Dave, which is kind of hilarious to think about. This is a song that really is faster and heavier and really heads into a more vicious territory than the songs preceding it. I really like the interplay between the drums and the guitar. Even the bass is really outstanding on this particular track. So if you think Dave's running out of steam, wipe that from your mind. Made to Kill, heaviest song, fastest song, most intense song on the entire album. The next track is called Obey the Call, and it tricked me a little bit. It starts off with this very light prelude, and I'm thinking, holy cow, Dave's going to slip a ballad in here. But after a few seconds, that idea of a ballad goes right out the window, and one of the heaviest, best riffs on the entire album breaks out. I just want to say, broken record time, the guitar work on this album, on this song, across the entire album, man, it is top notch. We talked about how much Dave really loves guitars, promotes guitars. Him and Timu just make such a dynamic force on this song and on this album. This is a more melodic song than the one before. Not nearly as heavy, not nearly as intense, but is equally brilliant. And then, just to throw it a little bit in there, a little bit something for the metal dude, the very last minute of it, it just picks up the pace and becomes one of the fastest tracks on the album as well. I would say that the last two songs, this one, Obey the Call, and the one before it, Made to Kill, both of these would be considered deep cuts on the album. These are not hit singles. This is deep into the album, but both of these songs are excellent. These songs back to back are absolute gems. The ninth track on the album is called I Am War. Now, this is a song, obviously, a little bit of an anti-war type of song. It talks about the futility of war, the hurt that comes from war. But it also is both literally talking about war and also figuratively talking about war. I think in a lot of cases he's also talking metaphorically about relationships and the hurt and the sorrow that comes from fighting and betrayal and all the damage that causes that. So there's some pretty interesting lyrics here. Now, I would say this isn't my favorite song on the album by far. It's one of my least favorite songs because it drags just a little bit. I can't help it. I like the fast. I like the heavy. I like the last two songs a lot better. But, you can take an average song, a mediocre song like this one, and really save it with two things: brilliant lyrics and then a beautiful guitar solo. And this song is saved by both. We are at the final song, and appropriately entitled The Last Note. What a great title for what is probably going to be the final song of your career. I love the fact that Dave has allowed himself right here to take a curtain call, to take a bow. Again, this is one of the most important, influential people in the history of music, and here he's going out on his own terms. One of the things that we sometimes can become a little bit jaded towards is all the retirements that happen in music, and then there's a reunion tour two months later. I'm looking at you, Motley Crue. I'm looking at you, Kiss. There are always bands that are saying, hey, we're calling it quits. We're going to sign a pact that we're not coming back. All the things that they do. And then 3 months later, they're back on tour, and you think, what was that all about? I believe, and who knows, I could be wrong, but I do believe in my heart that this truly is the end of the road for Dave. And this is a little bit of a career retrospective and a personal retrospective of the last 40 years of his life. And one more time, beautiful, amazing guitar work on here. The song itself is kind of, there's a little bit of an intro and a little bit of an outro where Dave kind of goes into this almost like written poetry. And one of the funny things is he has like a Caesar-like goodbye. He says this is his final sneer. I came, I conquered, now I disappear. This is one of the best finales in the history of music. I can't think of another band that's gone out. This is our final album. Here's our final ode, as good as this one. What a way to close the album. But wait, there's a bonus track. Well, looky here. This album has not one, but two bonus tracks. Kind of like when you go see a band in concert and they come out for one or two encores. This is, again, a perfect way to go out in style. You have your final declaration, last note, you're done, you walk off the stage, but they bring you out for a couple of encores. Now, the first of those bonus tracks is a familiar track. It is the old Metallica song "Ride the Lightning." We're going to talk about that in here in a second. The second bonus track is a song called "Bloodlust" that's only available if you buy this album from Target, which I have not done. So I have no idea what Bloodlust sounds like. If I hear it down the road, maybe I'll attach a little extra to this or make a short and discuss that song. But I have heard this Ride the Lightning cover. Now, for those of you keeping score at home, you probably realize that Dave has a very complicated history with Metallica. Again, he was one of the original members of the band. Most people know that. And most people know that he had a lot of hand in writing the songs on the very first album, Kill 'Em All. A lot of those songs, probably half or more, were songs that Dave Mustaine helped write. But what a lot of people don't realize is that he also helped write a couple of songs off their Metallica's second album, Ride the Lightning. One of those, the title track, which he's going to do here. Now, Dave, he's going out in style, and he's saying to the world, listen, I wrote the music for this song. Now, James wrote the lyrics, but I wrote the music for this, and I want to play it for you because this is technically one of my songs. And there's nothing wrong with that. In fact, it's kind of interesting. Testament put out a really good album last year called Parabellum. And right after that album, they put out a cover of the old Metallica classic, Seek and Destroy. We're talking old school Kill 'Em All. And now here Dave Mustaine jumps in and does a cover of Ride the Lightning from their second album. And I got to thinking about it. Wouldn't that be a great triple bill in 2026? Metallica, Megadeth, and Testament going out on the road this summer, big arenas. I know I'd plunk down my money to see that show. Woo! Who says no, right? Well, I know for a fact, because it's been in the media lately, that Dave Mustaine has pitched the idea that Metallica and Megadeth would go out on the road one last time. What a wild farewell that would be. I think that's an excellent idea. I would love to see Metallica and Megadeth do a dual concert. It just opens up so many opportunities because, again, Dave Mustaine can come out and play with them. You know, you could do some really cool things. It'd be amazing. Now, having said that, back to the complicated history. I don't know that James and Lars want to go out on the road with Dave. They're still, I think they get along pretty well these days, but I don't think they want to push their luck. So I don't think we're going to see a Metallica Megadeth mega tour. But man, if we do, I'll be there for sure, because that would be one of the best concerts you're ever going to see. So that's it. We've gone through all 10 of the major tracks. We've talked about the bonus track. Let's wrap this baby up and let's go to the conclusion. Now, let's face it. Megadeth is one of my all-time favorite bands, and I really was hoping they would go out on a high note. Well, after reviewing the album, all 10 tracks plus the bonus track, I have to say, mission accomplished. Dave has pulled it off. This is a terrific album. If you're a fan of Megadeth, if you've ever liked Megadeth, you need to check this album out. I give it full throat endorsement. It is really good. Now, I want to temper a little bit of the expectations. If you're expecting this to be like of their quality of back in the 80s and 90s, it's not quite that good. Keep in mind, one of the greatest stretches of heavy metal history occurs between Peace Sells and Countdown to Extinction. Megadeth puts out like 4 classic thrash metal albums that are really the foundation of which thrash is still going strong to this day. They're that good. So it's not quite that good. But I will say this, if you've lost track over Megadeth over the years, because it has been a long career and it's not all been great, I would also say that while that era is untouchable, over the last few years they put out some really good stuff. Their last 3 albums, this one included, have been very good. Going back a few years to the album Dystopia and moving your way forward, you're going to find some really good stuff here late in their career. I think Dave really had a little bit of a resurgence here over the last decade or so. My favorite songs on the album, I mentioned the very opening track, Tipping Point, very good. Let There Be Shred, what a fun track. Just Dave going to town and really letting his playful side out. I really love that song. And then, of course, I talked about Made to Kill and Obey the Call, 2 deep tracks late in the album, back to back, that are both excellent. And I gotta say that the last note, the final song, sentimental favorite of mine. I really like it. My least favorite tracks, I didn't care for Another Bad Day. It's okay. It's got a decent riff in it, but a little bit repetitious. And finally, I Am War. It's all right, but again, without that guitar solo in it, would probably have ended up the worst song on the album. So those 2 are kind of mid-pace songs that I didn't care for as much. But listen, whether you're a Megadeth fan or not, if you like great guitar, you need to come and listen to this album. If you like riffs, come to this album. If you like shredding, come to this album. If you like flamenco guitar, Dave does it all on this album. You're going to love it. Congratulations to Dave. You pulled it off. You're ready to go off into retirement on a high note. I wish you nothing, my friend, but happiness and peace in your retirement. Now, as I say that, like he's going to go away tomorrow, they are planning a massive tour. He'll be on the road for quite some time. So if you have a chance, if Megadeth comes to your town, you better grab the opportunity, because I really do think this is it. Wow, 2026 is off to an unbelievable start. We've had 2 of the best thrash metal albums I've heard in a long time, back to back. Thrash metal fans, you got to be in absolute bliss right now. And if you like hearing about new albums that are coming out, here's a chance where you can subscribe to the channel. Give this a thumbs up. Subscribe and be alerted to all of our new content. We're putting out new content every week. We try to put out videos every Tuesday, putting out a lot of shorts. We are coming up on a big event, the Metal Dude Awards, where we will hand out awards for all the great heavy metal that happened in 2025 across all the different subgenres. You don't want to miss it. That's coming up in a couple of weeks. So subscribe to the channel so you get alerted, because people get busy and they forget about things. You don't want to be that person. So consider subscribing to the channel. We'd love to have you. In the meantime, this is the Metal Dude signing off. Take care.